Hey folks, Matthew Weiss here, WeissAdvice.com and WeissAdvice here on YouTube. Happy New Year! I'd like to bring in the new year the traditional way with Mr. Worldwide, aka Pitbull. So I dug this record out of the vaults. It's about maybe 6 or 7 years old. It's a B-side. I don't think it's ever going to see the light of day. I'm going to pivot to a different record later in the week because this is a vocal plus 2-track record that's probably never coming out, and I do want to show a track with multi-tracks that also has been released because I think it'd be nice to be able to see, like, okay, this is what the finished result ended up being. But for now, I think that there's a lot that can be learned from this record, so I wanted to pull it out, do a fresh mix, and talk about a few things. Okay, let's play this down just so we can get a sense of where we're at with it.
She's a killer in that red dress. Hot as summer, she a stunner, but she break necks. I'm hoping that she thinking what I'm thinking. Come to find out what she drinks, what I'm drinking. The night's lining up well. Feeling like Biggie, I got a story to tell. Baby, baby. Sweetness, where you park that? She said, why? I got.
Okay, so it's a good sounding vocal overall, I think. There's a couple of glaring issues that I do need to address, but in general, it sounds like Pitbull, even with nothing done to it at all. And that's because Pitt and his engineer Berna have been working together for years. They've got their sound down, and so something great to work with. The two things that I don't like, first of all, there's a lot of sibilance, so pretty straightforward. The other thing is that there's a bit of something going on that I call the karaoke effect, where there's never a right vocal balance. Like, the level is either something where it feels like it's kind of hanging over the track, like there's the beat, and then it feels like the vocal is something completely separate that's just sort of sitting on top, which is why I call it the karaoke effect, and that's kind of what we got going on here. But if I start to balance it, where it starts to feel a little bit more even, the vocal starts to just kind of disappear and get eaten alive by the mix. So I'm going to start lowering the vocal, and you'll hear that happen.
She's a killer in that red dress. Hot as summer, she a stunner, but she break necks. I'm hoping that she thinking what I'm thinking. Come to find out what she drinks, what I'm drinking. The night's lining up well. Feeling like Biggie, I got a story to tell. Baby, baby. Sweetness, where you park that?
Even when I lower it like a dB.5, it quickly starts to feel like it's kind of thin, it feels like it's far away, and so it doesn't really have what it needs in order to hold up in the record. So I want to go through kind of the cleanup stuff pretty quick. It's stuff that I've covered before, although everything is always a little different for every different vocal, different track, but then I want to get to the parallel returns because that's the fun stuff. So I'm going to play it with the cleanup stuff on, and we'll just go from there.
She's a killer in that red dress. Hot as summer, she a stunner, but she break necks. I'm hoping that she thinking what I'm thinking. Come to find out what she drinks, what I'm drinking. The night's lining up well. Feeling like Biggie, I got a story to tell. Baby, baby. Sweetness.
So much better right off the bat. It feels like it's blended with the track. It feels like it's connecting to the track. My only issue with it right now is that it just feels kind of small. But let's go over what's happening here. I'm going to take my effects back off. And let's put my makeup gain back on and solo up the lead. And I think even from the very first line, you'll hear a problem. Listen to the first couple of words.
She's a killer in that red dress. Hot as summer, she a stunner, but she break necks.
So, like, listen to the word killer, for example.
She's a killer in that red dress.
There's like a lot of woofiness that's working its way into the vocal from time to time. So cleaning up some of that stuff, adding a little bit of presence, and then also controlling some upper mids, and we get this.
She's a killer in that red dress. Hot as summer, she a stunner, but she break necks. I'm hoping that she thinking what I'm thinking.
And then, oh gosh, some de-essing, please.
She's a killer in that red dress. Hot as summer, she a stunner, but she break necks.
So that's the very core basic cleanup stuff. Nothing crazy there. The only thing I want to point out about that is that for some of these ad-libs, I'm using the exact same processing because I'm thinking of them as if they were leads.
She's a killer in that red dress. Hot as summer, she a stunner, but she break necks. I'm hoping.
Right, those yes, I kind of want them to jump out like they were leads, but then I've got another set of backups that are really intended just to be backups, so they're getting the same processing, but I'm not giving them that presence boost around the 5K, 6K range like I'm giving on the lead here. And then also I'm doing a couple little tiny things that are a little different. I'm broadly shelving off some lows on these. And then I'm using the Slate Virtual Tape Machine to shelve off some highs as well. I'm pushing into the tape machine, and then I'm using 15 inches per second to do some gentle roll off on the top end, and I'm using low bias so that I keep the distortion to be a little less square wave-ish and a little bit more just like color. So this is allowing me to get both some color into the backups, which put more color into the vocals overall, and also to kind of band limit it sort of slightly. And then lastly, a little bit of limiting on these backing vocals as well. And the idea here is that even with the backing vocals pushed up a fair amount so that they're pretty present, they never overshadow the main lead. So that's why those are a little bit different right there. Okay, so all of those come down to the bus.
She's a killer in that red dress. Hot as summer, she a stunner.
And the bus is pretty straightforward as well. Basically, it's starting with some compression. There's already compression on Pitt's voice, but I kind of want to glue all these different vocal parts together. I want the energy to remain kind of consistent. So when the vocal doubles are in, it doesn't sound like it's overpowering versus when they're out, and then it sounds thin when they're out. It sounds kind of even energy-wise both ways. And then also when he trades over to his ad-libs, the levels stay a little bit consistent. But it's very gentle compression, 2-to-1, pretty quick attack for digital, medium release, basic kind of approach there. Some more de-essing, little bit of extra low end showed up once the compression came on, so just kind of easing that off. Little more de-essing, but this time I'm striking a very specific resonance here at around 6.5K, so this is acting almost like a very specific resonance remover. And then the very last steps here are a very tiny 1 dB bump at 400 Hertz, just to give a little bit more body. And lastly, some tape saturation at the end. So it all comes together and sounds like this.
She's a killer in that red dress. Yeah. Hot as summer, she a stunner, but she break necks. Yeah. I'm hoping that she thinking what I'm thinking. Come to find out what she drinks, what I'm drinking. The nights lining up well. Feeling like Biggie, I got a story to tell. Baby. Sweetness, where you park that? She said, why? I got this joint, wanna spark that? She said, hi.
Now, if I wanted, I could probably leave it at this, and it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, but it's definitely not like, hey, that's great sounding. It's more like, hey, that's good sounding, and good is the enemy of great. So the real fun is coming in with the parallel returns. I'm doing sort of an Andrew Scheps-ish kind of thing, where I'm sort of dividing it into lows, mids, and highs. But instead of just spreading it across 3 faders and having that be my primary sound, I'm using them as parallel tracks. So I'm going to solo this stuff up here and show what these are all doing. The fun thing about parallel tracks is that because they're on parallel channels, you can control them in a really fine way, and that's where this becomes very useful. So the first thing is my parallel low. Now my parallel low is not filtered. It sounds like it's a little filtered, but it's not.
She's a killer in that red dress. Yeah. Hot as summer, she a stunner, but she break necks. Yeah. I'm hoping that she thinking what I'm thinking.
So what's going on here is I'm taking about 10 dB of low end out of the sidechain of this compressor, so the compressor's reacting a little bit more to the upper mids and treble than it is to the lows, and that's what's giving it sort of this heaviness. So that ends up sounding like this.
She's a killer in that red dress. Yeah. Hot as summer, she a stunner, but she break necks. Yeah. I'm hoping that she thinking what I'm thinking.
And then I'm adding the Waves MV2.
She's a killer in that red dress. Yeah. Hot as summer, she a stunner, but she break necks. Yeah.
And finally an L1, just to pin it in place. So basically the idea is this is going to create this like anchor, this like heavy weighted anchor for the vocal.
She's a killer in that red dress. Yeah. Hot as summer, she a stunner, but she break necks. Yeah.
So I'm going to play the vocal without it.
She's a killer in that red dress. Yeah. Hot as summer, she a stunner, but she break necks. Yeah. I'm hoping that she thinking what I'm thinking. Come to find out what she drinks, what I'm drinking. The nights lining up well.
Now I'm going to bring it in.
She's a killer in that red dress. Yeah. Hot as summer, she a stunner, but she break necks. Yeah. I'm hoping that she thinking what I'm thinking. Come to find out what she drinks, what I'm drinking. The nights lining up well.
So it just adds that like really strong anchored weight to the vocal, and also a little bit of nice color as well on top of it. The next one that I want to point out here is my parallel mid. This is a variation of a technique that I've shown a number of times on the channel, but basically I'm just taking the very central mid range, like the core of like the fundamental zone of the vocal, and I'm doing a little bit of distortion and a little bit of compression to it. Here I've muted the low band and high band, so basically it's going to sound like this like weird helmet intercom kind of a sound.
She's a killer in that red dress. Yeah. Hot as summer, she a stunner, but she break necks. Yeah. I'm hoping that she thinking what I'm thinking. Come to find out what she drinks, what I'm drinking.
Now, if I add this in with the main vocal, it's going to be pretty darn obvious.
She's a killer in that red dress. Yeah. Hot as summer, she a stunner, but she break necks. Yeah. She's a killer in that red dress. Yeah. Hot as summer, she a stunner, but she break necks. Yeah.
I mean, it flies forward because that's like the core of the voice. Even at minus 20 dB down, it's still actually reasonably audible.
She's a killer in that red dress. Yeah. Hot as summer, she a stunner, but she break necks. Yeah.
And that's why I really like the parallel channels, because I can really finely control how much I want of something, if any. And so this is very, very subtle, but it does change the sound and color it up just a little bit, and it's nice. Okay, the last one here is this parallel high, and this is kind of like an exciter thing. So what I'm doing is I'm rolling off everything below about 5K, and then I'm using a combination of compression and distortion, kind of similar to what I just did with the mid channel. Here, I'm using the custom opto, and then I'm using the Hollywood pre, and it sounds like this.
She's a killer in that red dress.
Sorry, let me just play the return.
She's a killer in that red dress. Yeah. Hot as summer, she a stunner, but she break necks. Yeah.
So it's kind of this like upper mid to treble, slightly hashy, distorted sound. Now let's get it back down to level, and let's play it with and without, or without and with, rather. So here's without.
She's a killer in that red dress. Yeah. Hot as summer, she a stunner, but she break necks. Yeah. I'm hoping that she thinking what I'm thinking.
Here's with.
She's a killer in that red dress. Yeah. Hot as summer, she a stunner, but she break necks. Yeah. I'm hoping that she thinking what I'm thinking. Come to find out what she...
So it's a pretty distinct effect, even when it's like 12 dB down. It makes the vocal feel a lot taller. Now, I do want to point out there is an alternate way of doing that. Instead of using the custom opto in the Hollywood, I've also tried now more recently using the Slate FG36A, and it creates a different sound for sure, but it's a really nice one.
She's a killer in that red dress. Yeah. Hot as summer, she a stunner, but she break necks. Yeah. I'm hoping that she thinking what I'm thinking. Come to find out what she drinks, what I'm drinking. The nights lining up well. Yeah.
So it's a more extended top-end sound. It's got less upper mids, and then it's also smoother, silkier, kind of has like an almost filmy quality in a nice way. This is something that I ultimately, in the context of the record, I didn't necessarily love.
She's a killer in that red dress. Yeah. Hot as summer, she a stunner, but she break necks.
So like here's without any of it at all.
She's a killer in that red dress. Yeah. Hot as summer, she a stunner, but she break necks. I'm hoping that she think.
Here's with the FG36A.
She's a killer in that red dress. Yeah. Hot as summer, she a stunner, but she break necks. I'm hoping that she thinking what I'm thinking.
Really sparkly and smooth sounding. Let me bring in the custom opto and the Hollywood.
She's a killer in that red dress. Yeah. Hot as summer, she a stunner, but she break necks. I'm hoping that she thinking what I'm thinking. Come to find out what she drinks, what I'm drinking.
It's a little bit broader sounding. It makes the vocal feel a little bit bigger than the FG36A. I think I would use them in different contexts. For something like this record, I feel like I prefer the custom opto and the Hollywood, but if I was doing something that was more like pop-ish, like really pop-ish, or like an EDM kind of record, I might err more toward like the FG36A for this. So just different sounds for different contexts. Anyway, let's put this back to where it belongs. Let's bring them all out and then bring them all in.
She's a killer in that red dress. Yeah. Hot as summer, she a stunner, but she break necks. I'm hoping that she thinking what I'm thinking. Come to find out what she drinks, what I'm drinking. The nights lining up well. Feeling like Biggie, I got a story to tell. Baby. Sweetness, where you parked that? She said, why? I got this joint, wanna spark that? She said, hi.
So really cool sounding vocal. It's really colorful. It's really consistent. And basically now it's just a matter of choice, like level-wise, where do we want it to be in the record? I like where it's at right now, so I'm going to leave it. Now, I do want to point out one more thing that's really, really important. It's not something that I'm doing to the vocal. It's something that I'm not doing to the vocal. Really important. I've talked about reverb and rap on this channel before, and what I said in one of the videos was, you know, one of the most important uses of reverb and rap is no reverb at all. But because it was a tutorial on using reverb and rap, it wouldn't have been much of a tutorial if I was just like, well, 50% of the time, don't even do it, right? That would have been pretty short. So I demonstrated some reverb techniques on rap vocals. But here is a case where I'm not using any delay, I'm not using any reverb, I'm not using any sort of ambience at all, with the exception of a delay on this very first yee-hoo. But outside of that, no reverb on this rap vocal, and it sounds really good this way. It sounds really dimensional this way. It's the processing that's giving it the three-dimensionality, not the reverb.
Yeah. She's a killer in that red dress. Yeah. Hot as summer, she a stunner, but she break necks. I'm hoping that she thinking what I'm thinking. Come to find out what she drinks, what I'm drinking. The nights lining up well. Feeling like Biggie, I got a story to tell.
Cool. I like to leave off there. Tomorrow I'm going to discuss what I'm doing with the 2-track because there's some really interesting stuff going on there. But for this video, we're going to close it out. If you like this video, hit that like button. If you want to catch more videos like this, hit subscribe, but with the bell notification so you get notified. And lastly, you know what we say here at Weiss Advice. We are musicians, sound is our instrument, and I will catch you next time.